You ever read much poetry, dude?
I read Donald Justice.
Well, what's Donald Justice?
He was a poet, early 90s.
Okay, fair. Yeah. You have a favorite poet?
No.
Fair enough.
Rennie Sparks?
Sure, why not?
I don't know.
T.S. Eliot, dude. You ever read much T.S. Eliot?
I've heard Alec Guinness speak him.
How does this always come back to Star Wars?
I don't know.
Don't you though? Don't you? I do love that there is a. Is he a corporal? What is Harrison Ford's role in this?
Lucas.
Yeah, Lucas. Yeah. But what is it?
I don't remember his rank. But yeah.
Yeah, I think he is like supposed to be a corporal. Yeah. No, that can't be right. He has to be higher than that. Why did I go with corporal? I've been watching a lot of MASH lately. But then I remembered corporal is only about as far as Klinger. So, anyway. Major. So I only saw Catch-22 once, and I never read the book. I liked the movie.
Yeah.
You know, what is your favorite war movie?
Oh, Star Wars.
Oh, shut up! Come on, man.
I don't know. I think All Quiet on the Western Front is really good.
Yeah.
I feel like that set a standard, and I feel like movies have tried to get there. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer.
Yep.
You could have said Lawrence of Arabia. That'd be a good answer.
Yeah.
I think All Quiet.
Dune.
Shut up. Oh my God, you're the worst.
I know. I'm sorry.
I think it's interesting that like Apocalypse Now is a movie that if you love film, you know, and maybe know very well. And I'm not going to say it's not influential at all, but it does sort of stand on its own in a way that other influential movies, like, you know, and war films, like, I don't know, there's something about this movie that I feel like it's definitely like part of the culture, but it didn't filter through in the same way that other films did.
I feel like it's a movie that succeeds because of its timing more than anything else.
Go on.
I feel like Americans were looking for the definitive Vietnam movie.
Yeah.
And looking for the right time for it. And that was it.
Do you think this is the definitive Vietnam movie?
Yeah, I feel like Oliver Stone has tried to like hone in on that, and you know, maybe Platoon. I still feel like timing wise, like it was just what America needed or was looking for at that time.
Like, that's an interesting question, you know, because there are many films about Vietnam.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, partially that's just down to, you know, who was making films and had access to, you know, doing that at the time. So, you know, it was easy to make that a thing that films could go and like keep relitigating, right? It's interesting though. I feel like Full Metal Jacket is probably more of the pop culture, oddly enough.
Yeah.
But
at the time, it was not.
Okay.
Like, I feel like when it came out, it was like, oh, this is great. It's a little late.
Oh, that's interesting. Because, like, yeah, Full Metal Jacket is like, what, 87?
It's 87, so it's after Platoon.
Yeah.
I think after Born on the 4th of July.
That might be a little bit later, but that's whatever.
But by then, like, Oliver Stone was kind of on his...
Yeah. It's interesting you keep bringing up Oliver Stone.
Well, it seems like he was trying to corner the market. So it sounds like the original plan was this was supposed to be a black and white movie made by George Lucas, a low budget, filmed in California, and it was just going to be like the Battle of Algiers.
What?
Yeah, that's what they were pictured. And it was supposed to be like a black comedy.
Like, go back and listen to our episode on More American Graffiti, because that is 4 different movies sort of mashed together, right? 4 different stories, I should say, one of which is set in Vietnam. Although Lucas technically didn't direct it, he kind of directed that movie. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, he was a lot more involved than it says on the screen. And so you get kind of an idea of what his Apocalypse Now might have looked like.
It's such an interesting movie, like way more interesting than it should be.
Oh my God, yes. Actually, look, American Graffiti is unimpeachable, but I think More American Graffiti is actually a very interesting film and worth watching.
Yeah.
It has an entire quarter of the film is set in the Vietnam War. And yeah, I could see how then you would have this kind of weird black comedy, again, trying to go for like a Catch-22 thing.
Yeah.
But building it around Heart of Darkness is sort of a weird idea, right?
Yeah.
So I guess Milius wanted to do that. And you were telling me he had basically been challenged by a professor.
He'd been challenged by a professor, but he was also, he was thinking of writing it, and I think Coppola encouraged him, and I think gave him $15,000 and said, "You can get another $10,000 if you get it greenlit." And Coppola kept saying, "Just throw in every story you can think of, just make it chock full."
What does that mean?
Apparently, he had a friend who told this story about the cutting off the arms. Every kid that was inoculated
had their arms cut off.
Yeah. And people have since tried to verify that and can't verify it.
No,
so
of course
maybe
not.
It's just a urban legend or something. But
it sounds like one of those stories that people tell about, like, oh, the bad people did this thing that's completely irrational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And John Milius sounds like the type of guy that will just take the worst story and just toss it in there.
Yeah.
You know, a little Kenneth Anger style.
Kenneth Anger, or just a guy who's incredulous and wants to believe the worst possible thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and at the same time, like, there have been groups who have done, like, the actual perverse things. I mean, all you have to do is, like, read up on the Holocaust. You could talk about ICE.
Mm-hmm.
You could talk about what's happening in our own concentration camps. You know, I mean, human nature is a perverse thing. You know, either we do commit horrors or we want to commit horrors, or we want to talk about horrors that the other team has committed so that we can go and kill them.
Yeah.
Everything is just, you know, hype footage. I don't know what to do with that idea. So, weirdly enough, that's relevant to the movie we just watched. Okay?
So let's get into what's Arthurian.
Let's talk a little bit about the Golden Bough. You were reading it last night.
I was, because you said the Fisher King was in there, and he wasn't in there.
Okay, but did they talk about sacrificing a king?
Yeah, there's a whole section on that.
Okay.
There's a lot of that.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. What did you read?
Well, if there's a king, savages, and he uses the word savages quite a lot.
Well, he is a Victorian dude.
He is very much a Victorian dude.
Yeah.
Anyway, so like when the health of the king is connected to the health of the land, which is a problem because like when the king is a person, like people get old, people get cranky. People sometimes have small hands. They get like rashes on their neck that you can't explain. What do you do with that?
I don't know, but the land suddenly goes bad.
Yeah.
And we have weird heat waves in March where it's 112 degrees in Phoenix.
So you need someone to come and plow the land better than that guy. And once they prove that they've plowed the land better than that guy, then you bury that guy into the ground.
Let's just think about that for a second. Yeah.
And you paint your face green.
The old king has to be killed and plowed into the land so that the earth can be regenerated and we have a new king.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe in a wicker man.
Yeah. That'll work. That'll do. Okay, so you ask, how is this Arthurian and how is this related at all?
Yep.
Right? Okay. So I've got 2 excerpts I want to read to you. One is from The Golden Bough.
All right.
And then the other is from Ritual to Romance.
Okay.
So this is from The Golden Bough. Primitive peoples, as we have seen, sometimes believe that the safety and even that their safety and even that of the world is bound up in the life of one of these god-men or human incarnations of divinity. Naturally, therefore, they take the utmost care of his life out of regard of their own. But no amount of care and precaution will prevent the man-god from growing old and feeble and at last dying. His worshippers have to lay their account with this sad and necessary... His worshippers have to lay their account with this sad necessity and to meet with it as best they can. If the course of nature is dependent upon the man-god's life, what catastrophe may not be expected from the gradual enfeeblement of his powers and their final extinction in death? There is only one way of averting those dangers. The man-god must be killed as soon as he shows symptoms that his powers are beginning to fail, and his soul must be transferred to a vigorous successor before it has been seriously impaired by the threatened decay. The advantages of thus putting the man-god to death instead of allowing him to die of old age and disease are, to the savage, obvious enough. For if the man-god dies what we call a natural death, it means, according to the savage, that this soul has either voluntarily departed his body and refuses to return, or more commonly, that it has been extracted and at least detained in its wanderings by a demon or sorcerer. So essentially...
There's that savage again.
Well, I know. I mean, yeah, that's unfortunately that is a huge part of what we're talking about, and this idea that these other people are savages. Look, I'm not saying it isn't racist. I mean, it obviously is.
Yeah.
I will at least give Conrad this in Heart of Darkness, where he is trying to emphasize that we see these people as savages, and that they are this other race. We were these people.
Yeah.
That the Britons were savages and, headhunters and all the rest of that to the Romans. He makes that point in the book. And that, is the book racist? Yeah, absolutely. In the way that he talks about, these people and that they are others and whatnot. There is no question of that. Conrad at least is trying to, though, have a certain amount of relativity and saying, yes, but also... Europeans were savages. That we have this idea of Western civilization and that we are above all of this, but we come from the same place.
Yeah.
Right. And, that wouldn't fly necessarily in the 21st century, and I don't think it should, because it still sort of has this idea that, oh, we've risen above that. But at least... for the 19th century, he's trying, right?
Yeah, I get some ad for some game where you're fighting hordes or whatever, and it has like these it elevates your character up from it starts off as Indians,
God.
American Indians.
Dennis, what the hell kind of algorithm are you living under?
I don't know.
God.
And then it goes to centurions and
jeez. Well, I don't like that.
No, I didn't get the game. It's just something that gets forced at me when I'm not getting shoot people in the head games.
Okay, but so you can see where Frazer in The Golden Bough is talking about the idea that the king and the land are one.
I really thought you were going somewhere else with Frazer there.
Not that Frazer.
I know.
Although, you could, I don't know, I kind of want to build a mystery cult around
Ham
Lilith.
and eggs.
I mean, look, we could work on something. You've got, Frazer as the main guy, and then you've got his brother, as the secondary, actually, if you get into things like the Golden Bough, and there's often a doublet for the king, who is the one who's sometimes sacrificed, and then you could have Lilith as this goddess of sovereignty who withdraws sovereignty from Frazer, and it's so that he is no longer king and is exiled to Seattle.
Are you saying we have to kill Frazer?
I mean, I'm not against it. I watched all of Frasier. I mean, I didn't watch the reboot because why would you? But
he is trying to kill Bart for some reason.
That's true.
D Bart D.
Okay, but so you get where the Golden Bough is talking about. The king embodies the land, and as the king gets old and sick, and it makes the land infertile. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so how do you rejuvenate the land? You have to kill the old king with a new king,
I forget, in Excalibur, do we see a Fisher King?
No.
We just see that cup.
We see the Grail Castle.
Yeah.
Percival has a vision.
Right.
But the film melds the Fisher King and Arthur.
Right.
Which actually, on a mythological level, makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
But it's not what the source material does necessarily. I mean, you get some weird stuff in the book in the version called Parleval, but that's a whole other thing I don't want to really get into right now. But so you see where, you know,
Look, we know Borman could have gone farther and weirder.
Yeah, honestly.
So we should be happy with what we got.
When you think about it, Excalibur is pretty restrained.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let me talk a little bit about what then Jessie Weston takes from that. So in From Ritual to Romance, she talks about how, you know, she sees sort of similar patterns, ideas in the Grail Quest. So that she says, and I'm quoting here, as far as like what the elements of the Grail Quest are to her. A, there is a general consensus of evidence to the effect that the main object of the quest is the restoration of health and vigor to a king suffering from infirmity caused by wounds, sickness, or old age. B, and whose infirmity, for some mysterious and unexplained reason, reacts disastrously upon his kingdom, either depriving it of vegetation or exposing it to the ravages of war. C, in 2 cases, it is definitively stated that the king will be restored to youthful vigor and beauty. And D, in both cases, we find Gawain as the hero of the story. And that's true, like in Diochrone and in one of the Percival continuations. And in one version connected with Percival, the misfortune which has fallen upon the country is that of a prolonged drought which has destroyed vegetation, left the land to waste, and the effect of the hero's quest is to restore the waters to the channel and render the land once more fertile. E, but this much seems certain. The aim of the Grail Quest is twofold. It is to benefit A, the king, and B, the land. The first of these 2 is the more important, as is the infirmity of the king, which entails misfortune to the land. The condition of the one reacts for good or ill upon the other. How or why we are left to discover for ourselves. F, to sum up the results of the analysis, I hold that we have solid ground for the belief that the story postulates a close connection between the vitality of a certain king and the prosperity of his kingdom, the forces of the ruler being weakened or destroyed by wound, sickness, old age, or death. The land becomes waste, and the task of the hero is that of restoration. Now, how does this relate to Apocalypse Now? Okay.
A sick king.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the sickness then is visited upon the land. Now, but the idea being that the only way to restore the land, to restore sanity or to restore whatever, is the king either has to be healed or frankly killed.
Yeah. So
the Grail Quest softens the Golden Bough story by we don't necessarily have to kill the king, although sometimes in asking the question and healing the king, he is then able to die. He is released from his state, and he does die, and then Percival takes over for him, right?
And I do feel like Kurtz wants to die.
Yes. Oh,
like,
absolutely.
I definitely feel like when he hears an assassin, he releases him, and he's like, "You gotta do what you gotta do, man."
Yeah.
Like I respect.
Yeah, absolutely. No. That is absolutely part of it. And I think that is part of what the movie is. It says that there is nothing Willard can do but kill Kurtz.
Yeah.
And that the only way to end the madness, frankly, to end, say, the madness of the Vietnam War is to kill Kurtz.
Yeah.
And in killing him, you will restore sanity to the land by ending the war. Does Kurtz represent Nixon? Maybe. Nobody killed Nixon. Although his presidency was, destroyed.
Yeah.
In part because of the Vietnam War. I mean, Watergate, but like these things all kind of combine together.
So is there a grail?
Well, that's where I'm going with this.
Right.
What's fascinating to me about Apocalypse Now is that ultimately is a pessimistic film because it is an assassination without relief. when we don't actually see the ramification of killing Kurtz.
Yeah.
And we don't see Willard then going and taking over as the new king. Mm-hmm. The whole idea is to essentially end this cycle. He tries to break this. So, if anything, this is a grail quest with no grail, with no healing, with no perpetuation of a cycle or a restart. It is an apocalypse. It's an end of the cycle. This is it. This is the end. This is the end of the world. This is the end of the cycle. There is no new king because the guy who's supposed to be the new king says, I don't want this. He doesn't want to go home. He doesn't want to go back to the States. He doesn't want anything. He wants negation. It is a nihilistic grail story. That's fascinating. That they came to the end of the idealism of the 60s embodied in Lance, the surfer boy, right? Lance, whether that means Lancelot or whether that means the lance, which is part of the Grail procession, right? It's the word Lance, right?
Yeah.
So, does his name signify Lancelot or does it signify the lance that precedes the Grail? And that was actually the wounding of the Fisher King. The Fisher King is wounded by a lance, right? So, whether his name signifies one or the other, it doesn't really matter. It's both, right? What's fascinating about Apocalypse Now is it is saying there is no solution. There is no release of the waters. There is no new king. We are going to kill the old king, and that's it. That's the end. This is the end of the world. I mean, I think it's brilliant, but it's fascinating at how nihilistic it is.
Do you think the extended edition helps or hurts that story?
I don't know. I mean, the extended edition mostly, it's like adding, some extra scenes in terms of, it expands on the Valkyrie, the surfing stuff with Kilgore, and it, like most of the extended edition is centered on the French plantation. I don't know. I think it's interesting, and we talk about that later. Well, but no, I think it's good.
It's interesting that Lance is expanded because, like, when you watch the movie normally, he's kind of like the last girl in a horror movie, and there doesn't seem to be a reason for him to still be there. Like, everyone else that gets killed seems like a better person in a way, I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like he kind of announces their fate though in the beginning. He says like he's wound too tight, this kid's too young or whatever, and.
That's actually a good point. I hadn't thought about that, but he is sort of commenting on all this other stuff happening.
And it feels like because he's been around, he just knows what's going to happen. He's like, oh, he's dead.
Yeah. Well, and I think, one thing I kind of like is when he meets Kilgore, his immediate reaction is revulsion. Here's this guy who is conducting, an air assault on people in order to make waves so that he can surf and his guys can surf. And, Lance's response is, no, I don't want to do any of this. This is insane.
Well, what I like is that I think the regular version doesn't have him stealing the surfboard. And I feel like that at least that's showing what he thinks of this guy. Screw him. I'm taking his board.
This is all tied to ideas about human sacrifice, right? And as you said, if the king and the land are one, as they say in the movie Excalibur, and Excalibur, again, also borrows from the Golden Bough. And it's this idea of, the kingship and, the king marries the land, right? So if you want to talk about the Holy Grail,
Excalibur feels like the Foucault's pendulum of Arthurian. We're just going to throw in everything in the kitchen sink.
And it works.
It definitely works.